Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a scenario that, well, most of us think we understand, but actually have completely backwards. When we picture water damage, we usually just see a mop and bucket mess, right? A minor inconvenience. But the reality? Oh man, a typical burst pipe can literally pump out 100 gallons of water in just minutes. It's not a cleanup job, it's a high-stakes scientific race against a ticking clock. So let's break down the hidden science of structural restoration and see exactly what happens when water decides to invade a property.
Take a look at this number, 60. In the world of structural mitigation, 60 minutes is the ultimate benchmark. It's what the pros call the golden hour. When an emergency strikes, a burst pipe or a failed sump pump, getting a response team on site within that very first hour can actually reduce total property damage by up to 70%. Let that sink in. 70%. That is a staggering difference. It's literally the difference between a minor repair bill and a catastrophic tear-the-house-down kind of loss.
Okay, Section 1, the race against time. Let's look at the critical first hour.
The second that pipe bursts, water becomes an active, fast-moving threat. It's migrating, it's seeping, and it's hunting for the path of least resistance through your home. Now, you might be tempted by the illusion of surface drying. You know the drill, the classic DIY cleanup where you grab some beach towels, mop up the visible puddles, toss a box fan in the room and think, all right, I'm done. But contrast that with the actual cure, structural drying. This is the scientific reality required by IICRC certified professionals. They're bringing in thermal imaging to hunt down moisture hiding deep inside your wall cavities. Why? To prevent secondary mold growth and worst-case scenario, structural collapse. So remember, the mop is just an illusion of safety. Structural drying is the actual cure.
Moving on to Section 2, Reston's hidden flood risks. Here's how geography and architecture actually change the game.
There are specific local villains that trigger these emergencies right in the Reston area. First up, Fairfax County has these incredibly clay-heavy soils. They simply don't absorb water efficiently, which ends up pushing runoff right into our basements. Then you've got the housing stock itself. A lot of the original developments near Lake Anne still have their 1960s copper pipes, and after decades, those corrode and develop sneaky pinhole leaks. Add in those brutal winter freeze-thaw cycles that expand and crack exterior pipes, plus mature tree roots deciding to invade sewer lines in the wooded neighborhoods, and wow, it's practically a perfect storm for water disasters.
And honestly, the architecture just compounds the problem. Reston is famous for its beautiful townhomes and condos, but shared walls mean shared disasters. Whether we're talking about a sleek modern high-rise near the town center or a classic multi-level home over in Hunter's Woods, a single failed pipe or a pressure surge doesn't just flood one room. It rapidly cascades water down through floors and directly into adjacent units. Just like that, one little burst pipe becomes a massive, multi-property coordination nightmare in minutes.
Which brings us to Section 3, classifying the contamination threat, knowing your enemy.
So professionals actually grade this battlefield into 3 specific categories using official ANSI/IICRC standards. Category 1 is your clean water. Think a broken supply line to your sink. The initial health threat here is pretty low. Then there's Category 2, which is gray water. Think of an overflowing washing machine. This carries a medium threat and definitely requires antimicrobial treatments. And Category 3? Well, that's black water. We're talking sewage backups from those tree roots we just mentioned, or muddy, stagnant floodwaters. It is exactly as gross and dangerous as it sounds. It's heavily contaminated with pathogens, and it strictly mandates serious biohazard protocols and immediate material removal.
Beyond just the contamination level, water is also classified by how deeply it saturates your home. Class 4 water damage is the absolute most complex. This involves deep saturation into low-porosity materials. We are talking about water stubbornly hiding inside expensive hardwood floors, dense plaster, or thick foundational concrete. Unlike a standard carpet, these dense materials do not give up their moisture easily, making extraction and drying an incredibly difficult puzzle to solve.
All right, Section 4, the science of structural drying, moving beyond the mop.
Listen, structural drying is not guesswork. It is hard, mathematical science. Technicians actually use psychrometric calculations, measuring temperature, humidity, and vapor pressure to figure out exactly how much moisture the air can absorb. They call this metric grain depression. They even use thermal imaging cameras to literally map out the invisible moisture pathways hiding inside your wall cavities. All of this exact data determines which commercial dehumidifiers get used, exactly where they are placed in the room, and precisely how long they need to run. It's fascinating stuff.
Because of all that science, a realistic recovery timeline generally looks like this. On day 1, it's all about rapid extraction and thermal mapping. Stop the bleeding, basically. By day 3, teams are actively tracking daily moisture readings, constantly adjusting their equipment based on the data. And it typically takes up to day 7 to pull all the stubborn moisture out of those dense materials like concrete and subfloors. You absolutely cannot accelerate this process beyond what the psychrometric conditions allow. Rushing this timeline? That is exactly what causes your beautiful hardwood to warp, drywall to crack, and hidden mold to establish itself long after the trucks leave.
Which leads us to this absolutely foundational industry rule. We do not guess when materials are dry. We verify using industry-standard dry goals. You never ever just assume a room is dry because the surface of the carpet feels dry to the touch. Achieving a verified dry standard means the moisture levels in the damaged area perfectly match the moisture levels of the unaffected areas of the home. Only then, and literally only then, can the commercial equipment be turned off.
Okay, moving to Section 5, the 3 phases of restoration, from chaos to recovery. So how exactly do you take a property from the absolute chaos of a 2 a.m. flood to a complete recovery, complete with fresh paint on the walls? Well, you use a strict, non-negotiable 3-phase plan. Phase 1, emergency mitigation. You stop the bleeding, extract the standing water, and stabilize the environment. Phase 2, structural drying. That's the scientific moisture removal we were just nerding out about. And Phase 3, complete restoration. Rebuilding everything from the drywall out to pre-loss conditions. Having a single accountable team seamlessly manage all 3 of these phases, it entirely eliminates the massive headache of trying to coordinate a patchwork of finger-pointing subcontractors.
And hey, speaking of headaches, let's talk about insurance for a second. The restoration industry has actually standardized this part too. Professional estimators use a software called Xactimate, which, fun fact, is the exact same software your insurance adjuster uses. By speaking the same language and submitting direct, meticulously documented billing, it removes the friction and all those annoying back-and-forth delays. Most importantly, it allows you, the property owner, to focus on your family's safety instead of getting lost in a frustrating maze of paperwork.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a provocative thought. Take a moment and think about your own home. Think about the hidden pipes behind your walls, the soils outside, the weather this coming winter. If a 1960s copper pipe bursts in your wall tonight at 2 a.m., do you have a 60-minute scientific battle plan ready? Because as we've learned today, the clock is ticking the second that water hits the floor. And that old mop in the closet, it isn't going to save you. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I will see you next time.